Hi there, everybody. So our pizzas arrived actually more promptly than we were expecting, and we'd like to invite you to go back and have a piece of pizza now before the talk starts, and you can enjoy the talk while eating your pizza.
Yeah, no, that's the right way to do it. I watched them like you ready to start like, I'm like, please, hurry up. So pizza. It's pizza, it's okay.
I'm gonna actually go grab some.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's really no reason that charity should. Right.
Yeah.
You know, the other ones. Five K and 7. Yeah, that's fast, but it's not like. There are two. Yeah. Yes. Are you a fan of ZCash in particular? Or? I like running the same
And I put on like This is your 2-minute warning. We're going to get started in 2 minutes, so please make your way back to our seats.
But then every so often we have to broadcast.
No. Thanks for coming out, everyone. I think we're going to get started. Welcome to the BOB meetup, or the Bitcoin and Open Blockchain meetup. We have ZCash here today. So yay, ZCash. We are live streaming on YouTube, so if you don't want to be on camera, don't walk in front of that thing. And anyone sitting over here, don't talk too loudly about your hot date this weekend. Be on YouTube. We do run off donations and occasionally sponsors, so if anyone's feeling generous, we have a QR code in the donation jar at the check-in table right at the front over there. We're going to do 2 talks today. So Linda and Eric are going to each do a talk, about 30 minutes, and then at the end of that, we'll do a joint Q&A session. So first up, Linda's going to talk. Linda and Lee is going to give us an overview of ZCash. She's going to talk about what makes ZCash different from other coins, why privacy matters, and how ZCash achieves privacy and selective disclosure. If you don't know Linda, she has a master's in computer science from UC Berkeley. She's a former UX team lead at Tor and is now working on user experience for the ZCash company. So please welcome Linda.
Hi everyone, it's really good to be here, and I've heard some of you drove out really far to listen to us, and that's really flattering. That's crazy to me. Anyway, hi, I'm Linda. Thank you for the introduction. I'm a local here. I'm based in Chicago, even though ZCash is headquartered in Denver. I'm going to be giving a general overview of a little bit about everything that I know of in ZCash. If you have any additional questions, you can definitely ask me and my colleague Eric if you're curious about how we measure our privacy. He's going to give a good talk on that later as well. So I work for the ZCash company, and the ZCash company is responsible for bootstrapping ZCash, and currently we work on the protocol and consensus mechanisms for the cryptocurrency. There is also the ZCash Foundation, who is actively looking for people to fund for grants. So if you have an application and if you want to integrate ZCash or just be a part of the community and help the ecosystem, there's a lot of money out there. But I'm part of the company. Our aim is to just get a bunch of network upgrades in, get that SegWit-like feature in, make the privacy inherent and by default, and we're just doing a bunch of stuff, so I'll talk about what's going on. How many of you are familiar with blockchain? All right, that's actually a lot of you. Sometimes meetups are pretty introductory, but I'm just going to give a quick overview because I just didn't see everyone's hands go up. So a blockchain is a decentralized peer-to-peer trustless network. I bet a lot of you know what that means, but that's not how computers usually work. So if you are using a computer, or if someone like Eric is trying to send me a picture through Facebook Messenger, his phone just doesn't send it to my phone. His phone sends it to a Facebook server, and that server then sends it to my phone. So in a server-based network, every computer, or more accurately, every process on the network is either a client or server. And the servers are primarily responsible for handling the service, and therefore it has a centralized source of power and responsibility. And in a peer-to-peer network, as the name suggests, the computers don't directly connect to a server, they connect to each other, and they have the same amount of responsibilities. And therefore, every person or every node on the network will not only be able to send and receive Zcash or Bitcoin or Ethereum, something a client would be expected to do, but they're also responsible for verifying transactions, keeping a copy of the blockchain, and things that are more maintenance and server related. And this is why it's so great. If you wanted to take down Facebook, well, that's still pretty hard, but you would need to take down the servers. And if the servers misbehave, the whole application or service misbehaves. And in a peer-to-peer network, to take down a peer-to-peer network, you need to either control a majority or 51% of the world's computers, which is hard, but it's been done, or try to get everyone to misbehave independently, which is very hard to do. And you're thinking, okay, Linda, thank you for the computer science introduction. This is boring, but I just want to remind you that the great thing that Bitcoin did was not the decentralized peer-to-peer part. That has existed for a really long time. Do you guys remember BitTorrent? You could download music on it or other stuff on it, don't tell me. But the problem with decentralized peer-to-peer networks was that you couldn't guarantee quality and you couldn't agree on state. So I could give you a song, a Beyonce song with a virus in it, or it could be really weird. It could have 30 minutes of Beyonce on repeat and it's actually not the song. I could send out multiple copies to people. There could be multiple versions of it floating around. That sounds okay if it's for something like that. For currency, that sounds really bad if I just give you a Zcash and it has a virus in it, or if I can give the same currency to multiple people, or I can convince you if it was mine if it wasn't. And the breakthrough that Bitcoin had was that it got everyone to agree on the state of the network, which is really, really a huge scientific breakthrough, and there's a lot of math involved, and I'm not going to get into it here. And another thing that it did is that it used economics to incentivize people to actually behave and maintain the network, verify transactions, and things like that. And that's really great because for such a long time, we've always had middlemen that facilitate a lot of our transactions, like Amazon or the US government is in charge of the US dollar. But now we can just directly interact with each other. So Bitcoin, as you know, uses cryptoeconomics instead of a middleman to establish a global peer-to-peer cryptocurrency that doesn't depend on a bank or government. Ethereum allows people to build decentralized applications that don't rely on a single company and abstracts all of the blockchain beneath it through allocating resources with its tokens. ZCash is a fork of Bitcoin. Bitcoin Core around October 2016. I don't quite remember what version it was. And we have similar goals to be a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency, but with encryption as a feature to protect your data and metadata. We call ourselves the HTTPS of Bitcoin. We're trying to make it catch on. I don't think it's happening, but I'm gonna throw it out there. Yes. I think that we also want to emphasize that we are designing ZCash to be used as a digital currency, not as a speculative investment, and a lot of the network upgrades that we're doing is trying to support that. So here is a public ledger, very simplified, and on the way that Bitcoin works and how Bitcoin verifies that all of the transactions have happened properly and how it keeps track of who has what money is that there's this huge public list that you can't ever change, you can only add to it, and you kind of just run the math and see who has what and who's gotten what. ZCash, we use regular standard encryption algorithms, the ones that are used for encrypting your internet traffic, for example, things that have been very well tested and documented for decades. And we encrypt the sender, the recipient, and the amount, and a memo field like happy birthday or June 2018 rent, if you so choose to use. And you might think, well, then how do you verify that people actually have the money that they have, that the transactions are valid, and how can you tell that they're not fake ones? We actually use a novel cryptographic primitive called zero-knowledge proofs, which are responsible for making sure that the transactions on the chain are valid. That cryptographic primitive, or the idea of zero-knowledge proofs, are actually a very recent cryptographic breakthrough. It's about within the last 10 years, and there's only about 50 people in the world who can talk about it in great depth, like write research papers on it or talk about it for 2 hours. And we're trying to hire almost all of them, and we got about 20 of them. If you have any knowledge on that, please come talk to us. But for the time being and for the purpose of just understanding ZCash, I think the basic thing to understand is that you encrypt the data and metadata, and then some black box operation happens where you can verify that things have happened correctly. And if you want to be skeptical about if that works or not, please go right ahead. We're always looking for people to actually audit our code or contribute to our code. So that's really great. So in other nerdy terms, Bitcoin only uses 2 cryptographic primitives, hash functions, and signatures. We have encryption and zero-knowledge proofs. Woo, double. I think that's kind of cool. The great thing about ZCash is that you can choose to selectively disclose what you want and when you want. So we have 2 types of transactions: transparent transactions, which operate actually just like Bitcoin. We are a fork of Bitcoin, and it operates just about the same. In fact, a lot of the reasons why a lot of the applications have ZCash integrated is because once they add support for Bitcoin, they kind of get us for free. And our strategy is once we're in, we'll prove that we're actually technically capable, and then we'll just slide your digital freedoms right in with your knowledge proofs. We also have transactions that can be shielded, which I talked about, and it's not vaporware, it already exists. You can technically use it today, it's just very difficult to do because it's computationally intensive and you need a desktop machine to do it. And we think that in the future, if the network upgrades go well, we think that a lot more applications, exchanges, and services are going to be adopting shielded transactions. We have a network upgrade called Overwinter, which is coming in about a month, which kind of takes care of all of the catching up to do we have with Bitcoin. And the one after that, set for September of this year, actually makes shielded transactions computationally feasible, so it doesn't drain all your battery, and you can actually have shielded transactions on mobile. So the reason why we care about privacy, selective disclosure, and all this kind of stuff is that we want to empower everyone with economic opportunity. I would say that at ZCash, we're trying to build a coin that is very high standard and accessible to all people, useful for the vulnerable, but also to people like JP Morgan that we partnered with. So the differentiating factor between ZCash and most other cryptocurrencies is the privacy that it provides, but what differentiates ZCash from other privacy coins, except for other privacy coins that have forked off from ZCash, if you're being technical, is that since we encrypt your data and metadata, you can actually decrypt your data and metadata, which means that you can actually be audited if you want to. You can actually choose to disclose what you want when you want. For an example, if you were a charity and you already wanted to be transparent anyway, and you thought, hey, why do I need privacy? You could actually disclose all of your spending to the public, but keep your donors anonymous. Or if you're a regular company, or if you just want to use cash that is digital and global, you can actually do all of your business like you would do now. And then if you want to get audited, just give the auditor your viewing key. That's a ZCash specific feature, by the way. So our mission is to empower everyone to be able to transact. And if you don't know what that means, I think that it means that you haven't had that right infringed upon before. If you don't know, places like Amazon, I guess that's not really a place. A service like Amazon doesn't exist everywhere in the world for political reasons, trade reasons, or even just we don't make enough money over there reasons, or we don't like those people reasons, like I had a fight with that guy over there once reasons. I don't know what's going on. You can't actually go and buy something that you want. And if you're in a country like Venezuela, where hyperinflation is getting out of control, I actually sent a t-shirt to someone in Venezuela. I bought it with ZCash on a decentralized marketplace, very sweet. And it cost $12, and it would have cost them a month's wages to be able to buy that. And it's difficult to see that when we're in such a great country. It's hard to say that sometimes, but comparatively, yeah, we don't have that right infringed upon. So I feel like when I talk about this, it seems a little crazy or woo-woo, but it's actually going on right now. And we think that privacy is really important for people in those places because the government does not want people to use cryptocurrencies. And in some governments, this encryption is illegal outright. So it's actually required for safety. I talked about some of the legal compliance benefits for those people on the right too, and that's important too. I think that we want one currency that's useful for everyone, and we don't want one currency for dog walkers and one currency for suits and another currency for shirts or things like that. I'm going to give you a brief overview about the ecosystem. So I think that generally there are 4 big aspects that interact with ZCash. The first is the token, which is the coin that you think of, one ZCash. The second is the protocol that interacts with all the technical components. The third are the consensus mechanisms and the various constituents for consensus. And the fourth are the wide range of applications. So one ZCash is about $230 at the moment. It's been going up and down and still tied to the price of Bitcoin, but we also have 21 million ZCash in circulation total. Not all of this has been released yet. We have 2.5-minute blocks with a 12.5 ZCash mined with each new block. And we think that this is really great because the smaller block sizes and I guess not smaller block sizes, but the greater frequency of blocks allows transactions to go through faster. And we think that the aggressive amount of ZCash going into the network, we want to scale up faster. We're actually experimenting with a bunch of features like transaction expiry so that maybe you send a transaction to someone and the fee was too low, or the network was congested, or someone forgot, or the miners didn't want to mine it. It actually expires after an hour, and everyone in the network agrees with it. And for that, we wanted some small block sizes. We're really excited. We kind of want to see what you can use. Some of the choices that we made with our tokens seem pretty arbitrary. Maybe they are. Maybe there's some justification somewhere. The protocol interacts with the ledger, the public list of all of the transactions that have ever happened with ZCash. And the public ledger actually has a bunch of things. It doesn't just have the sender, receiver, the amount, the signature, and header, and the other stuff that Bitcoin has, but it also has the proof, and it also has to handle a complicated mix of things. So if you have a shielded address, people can't see money that you've received or sent, whereas if you have a transparent address, which is compatible with all of the cryptocurrency, people can see it. So we have a mix of encrypted data, non-encrypted data. You can actually send a transaction from a mix of shielded and transparent addresses to another mix. So that's handled by the protocol. We actually use viewing keys to selectively decrypt data and handle memo fields so that you can actually start having some accounting with some of your cryptocurrency transactions. So the consensus mechanism is what it's pretty similar to what a lot of the other cryptocurrencies have. It's just a way for you to agree on what the next upgrades are going to be, agree on the state of the network. And like most other cryptocurrencies, ZCash has 5 constituents: miners that actually mine the blocks and keep the ZCash network running, merchants that incorporate ZCash into their point of sale system, developers that work on our code, wallets and exchanges who agree to include us in their application or not. And the wide range of applications we have include ATM services where you can deposit ZCash into that service, take it out in US dollars, pesos, Amazon gift cards, checks, things like that. Payment services like Venmo, but with ZCash, a decentralized marketplace like OpenBazaar where you can use ZCash to buy something, except you can buy it from anywhere in the world and send it to anywhere in the world or sell to anywhere in the world. And point-of-sale systems like Square, but for ZCash. If you're interested in using ZCash, I have a couple recommendations. My first recommendation is that you should both have a hot wallet and a cold wallet. If you are technically capable, just a fan or an enthusiast, I suggest that you run a full node so you actually are participating in that decentralized network. But my favorite hot wallets, which are the wallets that you should treat like the wallets in the back of your pocket. You wouldn't keep $20,000 in the back of your pocket. That's more like a bank account. Those are your cold wallets like Trezor and Ledger, are Jax and Exodus. Jax is really great. It's a multi-currency wallet that has ZCash support, but it's very minimal. It has Shapeshift integration, and it's the most intuitive to use. Exodus has better accounting and visualization features, so if you're into building a crypto portfolio, that would be ideal for you. Trezor and Ledger are 2 hardware wallets. They're very safe. They keep your funds very, very unhackable. I think that even if you actually stole my Ledger or Trezor for 2 hours and used my computer, it's pretty hard, and all of the attacks involving remote hackers, so some hacker from Russia will not get your money. No bank will take your money. So I recommend using Trezor if you want a more heavyweight, mature hardware wallet. I think it was one of the first in the market. That's the one that I used. Ledger is newer, slicker. I think it has better UI, but sometimes there's a little blip here and there. Lastly, I want to mention ZCash D. It's our command line client. It goes currently only on Linux and Windows, and it allows you to run a full node. This means that you're going to download the entire ZCash blockchain, which is quite a bit. You are going to be validating transactions and participating in consensus, but you can also use it to send shielded transactions, custom transactions, and manage all of your addresses and things like that. That was a brief summary of a lot of the things going on at ZCash. I tried to cover a lot of ground, and maybe you thought that you want to know more. In case you do, you can check out our website at z.cash. Yes, the domains, yeah. You read that right. And people always ask me, is it z.cash.com? No, it's z.cash. You can also look at our GitHub repo. It's active. We actually have a user support section. If you are having trouble with the Zcash D client, you can see what we're up to. We actually submit and push and update and all that kind of stuff. We're not just fronting. And if you want to be part of the community, you can join the Rocket Chat at chat.zcashcommunity.com. If you are also a developer who wants to integrate Zcash into your application and would like some funding, you can also check out the Zcash Foundation. And if you are just someone who wants to work in this space, we're always growing, so you can talk to me about your skill set afterwards, and we'd be happy to have a conversation. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So if you have questions for Linda, just hold it for a couple of minutes. We're going to do a joint Q&A after Eric's talk. So Eric Ogilvy-Wigley is going to talk to us about Zcash metrics. So that's like shielded and unshielded transactions and the methodology behind calculating them. So Eric is a longtime developer. He has a degree in mathematics from UC Boulder and is currently an engineer at the ZCash company. So Eric, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, come on up.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to open with a joke, and I couldn't find any good blockchain jokes or whatever. So here's a bad one. How many blocks does it take to screw in a light bulb? One. We have to screw in 6 more before you're sure. That's pretty good. Yeah, I was going to do a little introductory, but Henry Hanna did that. I got a degree in mathematics a few years ago. I've got a minor in computer science. I've only been working at the Zcash company for about 3 months now, but I've been doing software engineering for several years prior to that. I used to work on doing a lot of local government software, property tax, electronic content management, and that sort of thing. Okay, so I wanted to like participate with you guys a little bit. So I wanted to ask a couple questions to you guys. One, what is privacy? How do you guys define privacy? I don't know if somebody could just yell out something. I thought that this was part of my research I was doing for this talk or whatever. I was like, okay, what's privacy? My next question is going to be what's anonymity, and then I'm going to ask like how those two concepts relate. So if anybody wants to.
Not sure. No one can see what you're doing.
Privacy is no one can see what you're doing. What's anonymity?
Not knowing.
Not
People
knowing?
can see it, but don't know who you are.
People can see it, but they don't know who you are. Yeah, that's about kind of what I got.
You realize asking us to talk about privacy while everybody streams on YouTube is probably a little silly.
Yeah, sure.
And then anonymity as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so I came up with. I just wanted to put in like a little definition of that. I didn't put up for anonymity, but I put up for privacy. Privacy is the ability to selectively disclose one's information. I just thought that was an interesting thing to know. So then maybe that begs questions like, how is Zcash private? And the way Zcash is and can be used privately is we have this concept of private addresses. So that we have what we call transparent addresses, which are just basically exactly the same as the way addresses work in Bitcoin. And then we also have our shielded addresses, which we call Z addresses. And this is what lets you do integrate with the stuff that does the $0 proofs and allows you to kind of be more private about how you're doing different transactions. So T addresses are the same as Bitcoin. Z addresses we have these things called notes, and then there's some stuff up there. They use join splits, which is kind of a technical term, but that's kind of the join splits are where the information for the $0 proof is stored, and we can. I'm not the best person to ask, but we can get a little bit more into the technical details and questions if you guys want to. So I think on the next slide here. So that kind of, there's more, because there's two kinds of addresses, there's like 4 sorts of transactions that you can do, and that's actually a little bit false, but there's, you know, it's like you can go from your transparent to your private, you can go private to private, you know, and then I put up some little terms for that, shielding, unshielding, and you can move stuff back and forth. One thing that's a bit tricky with ZCash right now is you know, getting more exchanges and other wallets and stuff like that to be able to deal with the Z addresses. But as Linda mentioned, that they're kind of computationally intensive, and kind of like the other thing along with that is that because a lot of places do already integrate with Bitcoin, they kind of like get T address support just out of the box. So that's something that so then that kind of like motivates this. That's something that we wanted to look at a little bit more. How many people are using Z addresses? You know, like how often is money getting moved around from here to there? We have this concept called like the shielded value pool, and that's when you're moving money from a transparent address to a private address. It then exists in this pool of money that you can't necessarily as easily trace where it came from. Okay, so obviously I just stole a lot of the stuff from Linda. Her presentation was super great. I really like this graphic or whatever, so I just wanted to include this again. It's like we have our transparent stuff, we have our ship stuff. Anyway, so we wrote this little. So the idea was that we're trying now to figure out all these different metrics to do with privacy and how people are using it. So we wrote this little script that just parses through basically the entire. This is obviously pseudocode, but it's kind of based on the Python script that we wrote. But it looks through the whole blockchain. It's going through, getting a log for each transaction. It's checking its Coinbase. In order to figure out the input amounts for the transparent part, we're having to go back and load previous transactions. And then for the join splits, which contain the shielded amounts, we don't have to do that. We just have that information already. And I'll put all this stuff is on GitHub, and I'll put a link to that towards the end. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I've been asked to speak.
So what is this pseudocode doing?
So what this is doing is we're going through and we're trying to find how much, what percentage of the transactions are shielded, what percentage are transparent, and then kind of what percentage are shielding and unshielding, and then like where does this money exist? Is this money that's transparent and therefore traceable? Go ahead.
I'm reading your code, and it's just a generic code, something like Bitcoin,
Yeah.
because it shows checking Coinbase, Coinbase text, and ZCash isn't on Coinbase.
ZCash isn't on Coinbase. Yeah, so I think I used a little bit of a misnomer here. What I mean by Coinbase is just like, that was something we were looking at. Is it that first transaction in the block? Is it the coin jam? I guess coin jam would be another word. So that was kind of my bad for the question was to do with what is Coinbase mean here. Okay, so we use this. We produce this huge set of data, which kind of just has all this information, which we're then going to go through and generate some graphs from. So look at block time, block height, the number of V-ins, V-outs, the join split in and out, and then kind of like the total amount of money associated with each of those. So let's kind of, I think the next slide is some graphs here. So this one's an interesting one. This is just the number, the total number of transactions by day for ZCash. You can see this ends through April. You know, it's like these numbers, our goal with this is to have all this up on the internet, kind of constantly updating and giving you real-time data. This script ended up taking a really long time to run, and it does a bad job of incrementally updating. So we just kind of got all the data through April, and then we're going to work on. We actually have a version 2 that's a little bit better, but this is what we're looking at today. Anyway, so this is our transaction volume. You can see there's like a bit of, I shouldn't say volume, but the number of transactions. You see there's a big spike in January. I think that was, or kind of around December. I think that's when there was a lot of frenzy going on around with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. There's a couple other spikes. I think the one in, I think that's June of 2017. I think that was when we announced our JP Morgan partnership. So there was a bit of a frenzy then. Okay. I guess I kind of skipped a little bit. For the script that we've run, it's going through and you have to have a ZCash DE node run as well, and then it's going through and just making a bunch of RPC calls. And one of the reasons that it ends up taking a really long time to run is because of having to go through and load all the previous transactions to figure out the amount of money that went into stuff. And I think that's something that a lot of like block explorers will just do for you. But it's like we didn't really want to just do like a whole block explorer. We implemented some caching into the program, which then speeds it up a little bit, but we're kind of like, we're working on scrapping that version, like I was saying, coming up with something else that can be more easily generated on the phone. Okay. The next one we will look at. So these, for this one, the colors aren't great, I apologize for that, but it's like we put up here several different kinds of transactions, and I didn't go into all of these in the beginning, but it's like unshielded. I apologize too, because that was meant to just be transparent, but it's like the unshielded, which is the percentage that is the largest. That's the one at the top there. Then we've got shielded. Shielded is like private transaction. Unshielding would be going from Z to T. Shielding is T to Z. And then there's also mixed transactions, which I didn't really talk about, because you can have multiple inputs. You could have, say, money coming from a Z address and a T address going into a Z address or a T address. So there's more combinations than just the four that I listed. But in our analysis, we found that there wasn't a lot of that. So it's mixed is, you can kind of see it on I guess it's the left there. There's a little bit of blue just kind of down at the bottom. Those are our mixed transactions. So there's that. And then we've got the coin gen, which I think I called Coinbase before. So as you can see in this graph that quite a large percentage of the transactions are transparent. But you kind of got to look at all the other ones as a bit of a sum, because it's like to be private, you don't just have to go Z to Z. It's like you could be doing some privatization, transferring money into a T address somewhere, and then somebody else, a Z address, and then somebody else transfers that out somewhere else later. Okay, this is another one. This is interesting. Cumulative transaction types. We've got the same legend here, and as you can see, kind of like one thing I think is really interesting about this one is like the coin gen. Okay, the coin gen looks totally linear. It's like that makes sense because, and it's like I don't know if it actually is. I didn't do like any statistical analysis on this or whatever, but it's like the coin gen should be totally linear because until the amount halves, we're getting a constant rate of money. I think it's interesting that kind of like the shielding and unshielding transactions are constant, but I think that's related to it's like those are proportional to how much money has been generated because it gets generated first into like a shielding address, and then people are moving it around from there. Another thing that I think is interesting to look on this one is like the slopes of these lines. So in this graph, that's like how much that's changing. So it's like, as you can see, kind of around July, October, it kind of starts, it looks like the slope is increasing. So that means more people maybe are using T addresses. But I think it's interesting to note that it's kind of like curving back the other way towards the end. Okay, and here's another similar graph where it's just kind of got some, it's like the sum, it sums up to 100. The thickness represents like the volume or the percentage of transactions on a given day. So this is another one where it's like we have about 75% of it ends up being, as of today, transparent, and then the rest is shielded. And then this is another interesting one too. This is kind of like looking at the total value of the shielded pool, and just watching that go up over time. I think there's some idea that the more money that is shielded or whatever, it's like the harder it is then to do transaction linkability studies, and that's something too that we're going to look into more a little bit later. But it's like, I think, it's like, I can't speak too much to that, and that's kind of like part of phase 2 is looking more to transaction linkability. I just wanted to do a little plug here towards the end. We have this, it's like currently we're on the Sprout version of ZCash. Linda mentioned that like Overwinter is activating. Sorry, this is a little jargon. Overwinter is activating this month. In September, we have a new version of the protocol that we're calling Sapling, which has kind of like new versions of some of the zero knowledge proofs or whatever. And this is just a little graphic showing how much faster and more and less memory intensive that is. So it's like right now, maybe if you're doing a private transaction, it takes about 40 seconds. In the future, that'll take just a handful of seconds and 100 times less memory. The idea is that then we can get this to be happening on smartphones and other smaller devices. So what are the next steps? It's like I mentioned, we want to do real-time data analysis. We want to set up, and we've started researching this a little bit already, but just kind of like have a ZCash node set up kind of in listen mode, and then posting stuff to a database every time a new block comes in, and then just doing queries directly on that to produce these graphs on the fly. We want to look more into transaction ability, and then meta-analysis just means like looking at this data and how to reacting to it and having that available to everybody. I've got a couple tools that are mentioned here. We have a couple programs here that you guys can go check out if you want to look at more some of the technical details for some of this stuff. And then we just used like a Jupyter notebook and then some Python library, which lets us talk to make RPCs to the ZCash node. That's it. That's my talk. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Eric. We're going to do a Q&A session with both Linda and Eric now. So I'll play microphone runner. If you guys have questions in the back there. And come on. All right, who's got questions? Lots, all right.
Yeah, Eric, I was wondering if you could speak to the use cases for unshielding. I think you might have mentioned that after SPY, they'll be unshielded just bring out the real different accounts, but is there any cases where, like true cases where unshielding would truly be the option to choose?
Right. So the question was to do with unshielding. I think right now the main reason that exists is because like a lot of these exchanges, if you want to get real money, they require that you do it as a transparent transaction, and that's it. So that's that.
There's no reason to have transparent addresses if we had shielded addresses working properly, because you can just decrypt your shielded transaction and just have it be viewable by selected people, because what you want to do is actually just show a receipt to someone or just show whoever your accountant is, not the whole world. So we actually want to get rid of transparent addresses entirely. It's just that interoperability would be impossible, and then the coin would kind of suffocate.
With the advent of Sapling and the integration to use Z-Snarks on mobile devices, have you guys looked at any particular operating system to target first, like Android or iOS?
I know that the guy, one of the main guys who's been working on this, ran this on some Android emulator or something like that. So I think that's likely to be kind of where the first thing is.
Ideally, we would just actually have a process where we can build an application and then have it build on all operating systems correctly the first time, because we've done the thing where we launched ZCash before and it only built on Linux, and it took a year to get it to build on Windows, and it still can't build on OS X, and it's kind of a mess. So we're trying not to do that, but Android is the easiest, but we should have just gone out with an Android app.
Hi there. I was wondering if you could talk about the founders reward a little bit in Zcash and maybe the criticism that might lead to centralization. Going a little bit and whether that might play into concern about Zcash possibly being able to security versus not in the future.
And before you do that, can I add that you might want to, maybe you could clarify for everyone the difference between Zcash protocol and Zcash company and the Zcash Foundation?
Sure, the question was about the founders reward and the criticisms about that causing centralization. The ZCash protocol is just the actual code running on all of the peer-to-peer network nodes that send, receive, verify, and keep an updated copy of the blockchain. That's arguably centralized, but for different reasons, like a lot of people just have mining pools or something like that. There is the ZCash company, which is responsible for actively updating the protocol mechanism, the thing that I just described, and the consensus mechanism. And the founder's reward actually goes to the company to help bootstrap ZCash. So one thing we could have done was just to have ZCash and then release it into the wild and try to just have it completely open source. We were afraid of what might happen, and we took a little bit of each newly mined block and give it to the ZCash company for the first 4 years. After 4 years, the reward stops, but for the first 4 years, the company would be responsible for getting the network into a healthy state, develop a community so that there is a community of developers, and then hand it over to the ZCash Foundation. The ZCash Foundation is separate from the ZCash company and is more responsible for advocating for privacy in general, and if there are forks of Zcash, they wouldn't pick a side. So the argument for the founders reward causing centralization is that, hey, there's a company that maintains almost all the code for Zcash. And that is very true, and we are centralized, and we admit that. I think the only thing that we're saying to that is that one misconception about the founders reward is that the company gets a percentage of every single transaction. It's actually a percentage of only newly generated Zcash. So it's only on the Coinbase transactions, we don't get a part of every single fee for the transactions in the network. So it's actually much smaller than people think. And I think that Zcash is very centralized, and we've also seen other open source projects do great. And that is kind of a sore spot for us, but I think that we are centralized but working towards decentralization. And yeah, I think that people who try to defend it and say that it's not, I don't think I like admitting it, but it is. I will point out that a lot of people, like even the Monero people who are just a group of open source developers, they're pretty centralized as well. It's just that maybe it is less apparent. And I think that transparency is important. We look as centralized as we are, and we do get criticisms about that.
If I recall correctly, ZCash was launched coming up on 2 years ago now. And since it was based on Bitcoin, I'm curious how it tracks with improvements to Bitcoin in terms of keeping up. And also, did I hear something about SegWit in one of the talks, possibly?
We're implementing SegWit-like features. I think you can reuse most of your code, but there's a couple of differences. But yeah, that's in the next upcoming upgrade.
And it is a fork, so we're able to just pull stuff from upstream, basically. So that's kind of like an ongoing. Being a new person or whatever, my understanding is that's an ongoing challenge that we face. It's like what stuff comes from upstream, Because there's definitely good stuff that we want to take advantage of. It just takes time and effort to review it. But it is something we have been doing and are very interested in continuing.
Hello. So I would be curious to know which are the privacy implications of changing the zero input to sapling. So in particular, I'm curious if I have a shielded coin today and then you get a sapling tomorrow, can I change the shielded coin seamlessly to sapling, or do I have to do some other mechanism like opening it and then closing it again in the new zero input?
I apologize, I didn't hear all of your question.
So the question is what do you think are the privacy implications of changing the zero knowledge proof system that you have in ZCash? So if I understood you're going to change to something. So if I have a shielded coin today and I want to have a shielded coin in something, what would I have to do? And it's privacy again, it's privacy rules.
Right. I think it should just, I don't know if you know the answer to this off the top of your head, but I think it should, I believe, and I don't know the answer to this off the top of my head, but that it should just work. You know, it's like it's just two sort of separate proofs, and theoretically they can exist simultaneously, and you can have a transaction get processed that has both. But moving forward, new ones will just all use this new sampling system.
Thank you. If ZCash was to get more popular and the transaction volume increases, what's the developer philosophy of ZCash, the scalability in terms of on-chain or second-layer solutions if it was to get popular and need that sort of potential upgrade?
Sorry, the question was about scalability. What is our opinion or our approach, like off-chain stuff or other mechanisms? Do you have any idea? I don't think we have the answer to that one because we are currently focusing on making the shielded transactions feasible. I feel like not having your distinguishing features adopted by any application is a special case of hair on fire. So we're unfortunately just fighting that fire. I know a lot of developers who are a fan of Lightning networks, and we've actually been in touch with Lightning people before. We are kind of just investigating every single possibility, and we haven't seen one solution that has blown us away all universally. I think that it's just an ongoing discussion. And we also do ask the ZCash community about what they think as well. But I don't think that's for a year or so right now. And fortunately, we don't have to worry about the scalability yet.
Yes, and that's what's your opinion on
I love Lightning Network.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the privacy metric statistics. So it seemed like from one of the last graphs that the total amount that was shielded, I think it was like 250,000 ZEC, which is, I think, like 1% of the mined amount. If correct me if I'm wrong, that seemed to be the takeaway there. What do you guys think of that number? And like moving forward, are you going to use it as a milestone? Do you want to see the 1% go to, 10% by a certain point, or to 100? Or like, how do you think about having 1% of the network shielded? Is that like a steady state number? You think it'll always be some amount, or should it be 100%?
Well, I think one of our goals ultimately, like you were mentioning, is to like get rid of the transparent transactions completely. So it's like that would be nice if just all of the money were kind of in this shielded pool, and then it's just a matter of choosing to disclose that or not. But let's see here, and it's like you're comparing it, I think, to the 21 million, but I think there's only like 4 million Z coins that have been released right now or whatever. So that's a bit. Yeah. So it's a bit better than that 1% estimate, but You know,
Yeah, that's actually a lot better. I didn't realize. I thought it was 21 million mine, but I guess the same upper cap.
Sorry, that was the total circulation supply.
Okay, but it's not. Got it.
Still pretty bad though.
So I mean,
Yeah,
5% shield is actually kind of impressive, I think.
We actually think it's pretty bad and we're pretty sad about it. And the reason why we started measuring it right now was because this is the amount of shielded transactions that are happening if you own a Linux machine and run a command line client and put raw inputs and craft your own Z address transactions. Hopefully, if you have a wallet that lets you just fill in, send one ZCash to this address and press a button, that number will go way up. But we're really sad about it. But like Eric pointed out, there are a lot of mixed transactions and shielding and unshielding transactions, which do provide a higher amount of privacy. And if you count the number of transactions that are just not transparent, that bumps it up to about 20-30%. So whoever's sending the money, if they want to send it to a transparent address, but I want to keep myself shielded, they are getting that privacy. Or if I am using a mobile wallet app, but I want to give some money to a friend who has a shielded address and doesn't want people to know that I'm sending money to him, he can still have that privacy. So, but shielded to shielded is pretty hard. You got to get two people who are fussing around at the command line today.
So everyone in the community right now is looking at you guys and not really knowing what you guys stand for. Are you guys, you guys want to build an anarchist privacy coin, or are you guys want to comply with exchanges and comply with governments? What is this? Will you guys ever just have privacy by default? What's the goal here? What do you guys want? Because there's a lot of people looking at privacy coins right now, and you guys always come up. But the question is, if privacy is not by default, why would I even invest in you guys?
So that's a really good point, and we're really sad that privacy is not by default. And we are talking the talk and saying that, hey, once we make the shielded transactions computationally feasible, then maybe more transactions would be private. And once that is adopted, we want privacy to be by default. But if you're a skeptic, I think you're entitled to think that, and you should watch us very closely and hold us to that and see if our code is, worth placing the amount of trust that you would put in with your money. And I think in terms of where do you stand with regulators and where do you stand with the anarchists. So I used to work for Tor, so I was a crypto anarchist for a really long time. A lot of us in the company ourselves identify that way, but a lot of us would not. And I think that our vibe that we're trying to give off, and I don't think it's working because no one's really getting it, but we want to be like mad scientist, sexy Snowden. We have the weird ceremony stuff going on, we have the bad stuff going on, and that's what we're trying to go for, and we're trying to play nice with regulators just because we want privacy to, so my personal stance, and I think the company would agree with this, is that we're fans of Monero, we're fans of ZCash, we want privacy to win, we don't necessarily want us to win. I would like that, because I get paid in ZCash, that'd be great, but we really want privacy to win. I think that if we came out as full-on anarchists, we don't know how well that would vote over for regulators, and they might just squash us. So we are trying to play the high road of pretending we're blue chip, but yeah.
Right, okay, so the first thing is that you guys could play a role in the space right now as a bridge builder, by being kind of a Trojan horse now that privacy coins are going to become more persecuted. The downside is that you guys probably won't be getting the respect you guys would want from the agorist, crypto anarchist crowd, which is really the smartest crowd in the space. I mean, they're the ones, we started this, And And you know, something else to keep in mind is that the regulators' dream about allowing them in exchanges will only last for so long. I mean, right now as we speak, we have platforms built in cell code where we can have cross-chain decentralized exchanging that are outside of a blockchain infrastructure that already we have built out software and hardware components. So, I mean, it's literally a turnkey switch right now where it's going to be impossible to regulate exchanges. So, yeah, I don't know, balls in your court, but if I were you guys, I would go straight, you know, privacy by default.
That's a really good point. I'm not CEO, but I would agree with that.
Well, just to comment on what you said, literally right before you made your statement, they said the goal is to do privacy by default. So, anyway, can you talk about the ASICs a little bit? Like, I'm not really caught up, but you're going to allow those to exist, right? Like,
You know, it's like allow is an interesting word. We can't go like tackle the dudes who are like making them, right? So it's like in that sense, sure. Again, it's like I'm kind of the new guy, so I'm like not the perfect person to ask about this stuff or whatever. But it's like, you know, it's a bit of a cat and mouse game, I think. You know, it's like we come up with it's like we've got ZCash, which is supposed to have all these different properties that make it ASIC resistant or whatever. But then somebody comes out and develops an ASIC for it anyway. I think some people are obviously going to be happy. Nobody was happy about that, right? Nobody would have done that. But I think that, you know, it's like my understanding from reading kind of the different chat is like there are a lot of people who are like really super passionate about either allowing that or disallowing that. I don't personally have an opinion or whatever, and it's like I'm not sure if they. Zuko, he's the CEO. I think he's put out some official statement on that, and I don't have it memorized, but it's on Twitter or something like that. Okay, she does.
I don't like ASICs, but I'm not ZCash. Zuko's official statement is that we are not going to put anything about ASIC resistance in the next 2 network upgrades or ports, because I feel like we've already done most of the work for the next 2 network upgrades, so it's not going to happen for another 6 months. People are going to be pissed off for about 6 months to a year, maybe, and we feel like we're in the hot seat for that, so we're just doing a no-no. But if you look at our community channel, they're pretty like, those terrorists at Bitmain made a miner, what are you going to do about it? We're like, take it down. So, I don't know, you can get a feel of what it's like. But yeah, unfortunately, we can't react as fast as we want to.
thank you. Would you ever, in the next upgrade, reduce the founder's fee to like say 10% the next 2 years, or 5% instead of keeping it at 20% the next?
I haven't heard any discussion about that being part of the plan. I saw posts on like GitHub or something like that some community member was like advocating for extending the founders board beyond the 4 years. I think, you know, it's like that helps pay the bills for me, so I think that's cool. But you know, it's like changing it is not something that I'm aware of.
I kind of have 2 questions. First of all, what's your rationale for being an anti-ASIC? Like, from my perspective, ASICs are really a good thing because it threw skin in the game by miners so they can do general attacks and then repurpose their hardware for another attack. Follow-up question is, can you talk a little bit about the roadmap for actually making ZK-SNARKs computationally less expensive?
Right, so to answer the second question, a lot of that work for upgrading the SNARKs, a lot of that's been done already, but I think there's still some auditing that needs to happen with the code, and I think there's still some methods that we've got to bake into the daemon, like some different RPCs, and stuff to integrate it with the wallet or whatever, and then should be activating like in September. You want to talk about the first question?
I don't like this question. basic question. Yeah, I think that if I was completely honest, I was just always in the anti-camp. When you see the report, I was like, wow, he seems like an intelligent person on the other side. Wow. I was like, okay, good point. And actually, I think that I think we're supposed to not say anything about our public stance on this, but it is not unanimous. There is a lot of debate, and it is pretty contentious, at least inside the company. The thing that I mentioned in our community chat is blowing up, but our community chat is full of people who mine ZCash and are losing money for it. So it is kind of a, yeah. But I will say that there is healthy debate going on, and even talk of supporting them for some hybrid things that, I don't know, like make it better for ASICs, but also make, I don't know. There's some talk, not supposed to say stuff.
Yeah, I just think it's quite interesting. I don't have a strong opinion personally, so.
Could you talk more about the nature of your collaboration with JP Chase? You mentioned it briefly. I know nothing about it. I'm just curious to understand how you two companies are working with each other.
I don't want this to be my answer to everything. I'm not an expert on this or whatever, but I know that there's some stuff to do with there's like some fork of Ethereum or something like that where the ZCash company helped integrate some of the zero knowledge proofs to that. So it's all about kind of like doing these smart contracts, but in a way that is then privatized by some of the same stuff as in ZCash. I think that there's discussion about kind of like a phase 2 of that stuff. I think it's called Quorum. I think is the thing to look up. And the guy who is in charge of that just had a kid, and he just got back into town on Friday. So we'll know more about that soon.
All right, any more questions? Over there, all right.
You guys talked about having a fund to support developers who come up with different use cases for ZCash. Are there any use cases that you guys know of that are interesting that you would like to talk about with us?
He's giving me the mic because I'm the user experience person, and I'm the one that just tests out all the apps, and I complain about what I see and don't see. So I think that we would throw a lot of money at someone who actually made a wallet that supported ZCash and actually supported ZCash features. Like I said, if you have a wallet, since we're not a top 3 currency or a top 10 currency, we're just kind of stuck in the back. And you can just kind of send and receive funds with ZCash. You can only use transparent addresses. If someone made a wallet that actually had support for shielded transactions, or even transparent addresses, but with memo fields, and actually had a correct number of confirmations, expiry periods, and things like that, that's something that's lacking. I think that a lot of applications out there right now are just wallets and exchanges, but we would like to see more marketplaces, point of sale systems, ATM-like services, because everyone just has a wallet that they're carrying around and they're trying to use it for something, probably just sending it to other people, but there is that decentralized Amazon like I'm talking about. OpenBazaar is the only service that I know of that is a decentralized marketplace. I think there's another one called Purse.io that integrates into Amazon, so you can literally buy stuff on Amazon with cryptocurrency. But there aren't a lot of places online or marketplaces that you can actually spend ZCash for stuff like t-shirts or toothpaste. So more stuff like that, more services that turn ZCash into fiat currency, like localbitcoins.com, but for ZCash. A lot of those things are in need. I don't think that we have any ideas of super novel things that don't exist for any other cryptocurrency stuff, because there's a lot of lower hanging fruit, but We could think of a couple really cool ones, like you could have an anonymous messaging system using, I don't know, ZCash memo fields, or you could have a watch-only wallet using viewing keys to keep track of your balances and things like that. But I think that's not as important as just having a good wallet and having a good place to spend your ZCash.
Cool, I think we'll take this question and then maybe just two more.
So when a block is mined, the miner or mining pool gets the 12.5 ZCash reward. Is that called the Coinbase? Is that transparent or shielded, or is there any move to make it a plan?
It's shielded, and a lot of people immediately unshield their Coinbase transactions and de-anonymize themselves. I think there was a paper out saying like, you could de-anonymize most shielded or like unshielding transactions. And I'm like, yes, it's exactly the Coinbase reward, and it's like, whoop, whoop. So, but it does go into the shielded pool. And we think we want to keep it that way because we want everything to be in the shielded pool.
Is there an intent or ongoing process to work on ZK Starks?
Right, and this is, another thing I'm not exactly the expert on, but I think that's a lot of what's going on with the sapling. I think that is us implementing the Starks as opposed to Snarks. But forgive me if I'm wrong about that.
Okay.
I guess I don't know. But it's like, that is something that is constant. It's like, it's talked about. And I thought that's what it was, but I guess maybe not.
All right, one last question, anyone? All right, here we go.
Thank you so much for coming to speak at MHub. I guess the last question would be, we focused a lot on the technology, but I'd love to know, what are your favorite experiences at the ZCash company?
This is my favorite experience so far.
I don't know about favorite, but there was a very, very distinctive memory burned into my brain. So I think that Zuko was really passionate about Venezuela, and he is a crypto anarchist, and he was so mad. He's like, we gotta do an airdrop. We're gonna send them t-shirts. We're gonna send them toothpaste. We're gonna send them this. And I'm like, okay. He's like, you use all these applications. Like, you should try sending someone in Venezuela something that's useful. And I told you that I sent them a t-shirt. I took, I think, 7 years of Spanish from junior high through high school or something like that. And I thought that I could communicate with people in Venezuela. And I thought that I could do all that stuff right. But I think I ended up sending a guy a t-shirt that was like way too big for him in a color that he didn't like. And then I accidentally sent him a kissy face because I use a lot of emojis. So there's some really, there's a guy in Venezuela with an awkward fitting t-shirt that I accidentally sent kissy face emojis to. So that's something that wouldn't have happened if I didn't work at ZCash.
Nice. Well, that was an epic round of Q&A. You guys are all very inquisitive. That's awesome. Let's give a big round of hands. A big round of applause. Thank you guys so much for coming out and answering everyone's questions. That was awesome. We are done. You're free to hang out and keep eating whatever's left of the pizza and the coffee and the water back there. In I don't know, an hour or so, we will kick everyone out. A lot of us wind up going to the bar afterwards. So if you guys are thirsty for a drink, hang out, and we'll see you out at the bar later. Thank you.